Hi guys, welcome to Crazy Burger. So in this video we're going to be looking at one of February releases on Evercade. This is the Turrican Collection. I can't wait for this one. Let's get started. Guys, first off, have to let you know that this copy of Turrican was sent to me by Blaze for review purposes, but the thoughts and opinions in this video are entirely my own, and I did not send this video to Blaze before uploading to YouTube. Enjoy the video. Okay guys, so let's have a look at the Turrican Collection. We've got a mixture of 16-bit games across Amiga, Megadrive and SNES. It's the complete Turrican Collection. 8 games including 2 bonuses. This is cart number 49 on the console label. Now I thought we might have had this on the blue label considering there's Amiga games on here. It's not even got a reversible cover, which is a little bit surprising considering they were sort of doing lots of those reversible covers late in 2025. Anyway, it's on the console label, so let's get on with it. We've got 8 games. We've got Turrican, Turrican 2, The Final Fight, Turrican 3, Super Turrican, Super Turrican, The Director's Cut, Super Turrican 2, and Super Turrican Score Attack, Mega Turrican, Mega Turrican Director's Cut, and Mega Turrican Score Attack. So it's all a mixture of games from Amiga, Mega Drive, Genesis and Super Nintendo. Now I'll try and cover this as best I can and explain where all the games are coming from, etc. Sadly there is no C64 version on here, which is where the games were first originated. But anyway, we've still got the best games available regarding Turrican. So let's have a look at the inside of the cartridge, or box, sorry. So we've got the lovely cartridge as normal, which looks fantastic. We also got the manual. And we even have, we got a poster. We got another poster. So that's 2 carts this month on Evercade that we actually get a poster, which is great. I'm delighted about that. Some nice posters usually. Very good quality indeed. So we've got that on one side, which looks really cool. And on the other side, we've got this classic Turrican Collection look, which is really cool. That adds a little bit of value, I think, to this collection, because obviously you can buy these on modern platforms, but not as one collection, I don't believe. I think you have to buy 2 separate collections with all of these games, which makes the Evercade version certainly a better value for money, in my opinion, anyway. So let's have a look through the manual. As usual, there's a lot of detail on the games, and you probably want to have a good look through this, especially with the controls, because they are quite in-depth. The Turrican was first released in 1990 for a range of 8-bit and 16-bit home computers, first on the C64. I think there was other conversions as well on other platforms. I think the NES might have had one, maybe Spectrum perhaps, maybe even Amstrad. We obviously got the Amiga versions, Atari ST, etc. It is quite a complicated backstory for all the different versions, so I'll try my best to cover it through the video. Now I think Blaze have done their best to try and sort of map the controls as best they can, so it might take a little bit of getting used to if you were used to playing these on the Amiga, for example, with a joystick and 1 button, so there's a heck of a lot to try and learn. On the C64, for example, I think we used the space bar to sort of control some of the weapons, etc. So a lot of complications. It does go into a lot of good detail here, which is quite helpful. Something that's best, just get quick hands on, refer to the manual for all the different moves that will vary from game to game. Some of the different versions introduce different styles of sort of weapons, for example, especially once you get to the console versions of the game. Turrican 3 and Mega Turrican. Turrican 3 was on the Amiga. Mega Turrican was the Mega Drive version. Lots of different variations there. Super Turrican was the SNES version, which feels a little bit like Turrican 2 in a way. A little bit of a modified version of that. Lots of cracking bosses, firepower, huge maps. You easily get lost as well. We've got Super Turrican, which is a wee bit different to the other Turrican games. I'll probably say Turrican and Turrican. I'll probably say it all different ways all the time. I'm not really sure which is the best way. We've got the score attacks, which were sort of added bonuses to the sort of game. There's probably not a lot of point to them, but it's a nice little bonus if you just want to have a quick bash at some of the games without having too much stress about playing them. Anyway guys, let's sort of put the cartridge into the EXP. We'll see how it feels. And there we have it. Now, by default, it's obviously sorted by title, but I would not recommend playing them like that. You probably want to experience them in the way they were released. So press the Y button to sort of sort them into the release sort of schedule, and you'll get the right sort of order in which I would recommend playing them through that way. Obviously, play the original first, and then make your way to Turrican 2, Super Turrican, then on to 3, then Mega Turrican, etc, etc. So that's probably the best way of playing them. So obviously, if you sort of go in here, I wouldn't recommend jumping into the other games first, but obviously how you play is up to you. Let's have a quick bash at the old classic, Turrican. Now, I first had played this on the C64, obviously. Absolutely loved it, and had Turrican 2 as well on the Kicks label. Excellent stuff. Never really played the Amiga versions till later in life. Obviously they are better, I guess, sounds-wise, graphically, but you just can't beat that sounds, can you? Superb. And I think it's the X button you use to start, which is the fire button. None of the other buttons will probably start it. So press X, it will eventually start, I believe. It sometimes feels a bit unresponsive. Now there's a heck of a lot to go over here with all the different controls, all the different weapons you've got, so I will go over that in the video. It is very confusing. I think Blaze have done their best to sort of map a lot of the controls to the shoulder buttons, the various buttons, different combinations, so I'll do my best to talk through that because it is a bit confusing. There's grenades, there's mines that you can do as well. You can do this, it's just mad. It is insane. There's obviously the jump button, and you can't jump on these bosses, these guys, until the second game. Don't forget there's lots of secrets to be found as well. Head left, get yourself the extra 1-up. Don't forget to grab this as well. Get your various pickups. You'll probably have your favourite sort of weapon. Personally, that's not this one. But anyway, guys, there's a lot to see. The maps are huge. Don't forget there is a time limit. I've run out of time lots of times while playing the game, which is kind of annoying. I wish they would disable it, but obviously you want to explore, but at the same time keep an eye on that time limit. Something else I probably should jump on as well, there is some cheats that we should probably pay attention to if you want extra lives. It says in the KD says, get yourself a high score and put in Blues Mobile into the sort of high score table, and you'll get yourself 99 lives and a huge stock of special weapons. That would be massively helpful because you definitely run out of lives pretty quick. It is a hard old game. Turrican 2, there's also on a cheat where if you put in a code on the sort of main menu, you've got select to bring up the virtual keyboard, and then you can press a combination of those buttons as it says there to get infinite lives. I would probably recommend giving it a try before doing that, but anyway, if you want to enjoy the game to its full, utilise those save states and maybe even cheat as well. Who knows? Great games. Anyway, guys, let's get these games onto the VS, and I'll play through all of them and I'll give you my opinion as we go. Okay guys, so before we get started, I thought we'd do something of an explanation to the background of Turrican, the different sort of games that we see here. It is very confusing. If you've never played it before, then it's probably even more confusing. And if you never actually sort of got any knowledge of the background of these games, just absolutely confusing. So when you sort of put this onto your VS, Alpha, EXP, or wherever you're playing them, it will obviously sort them by title, which probably isn't the best way of starting. So if you sort it by sort of release date, then it makes a little bit more sense. Now, the original Turrican was released first on the C64 way back in 1990, and that was done by a man named Manfred Trenz, who sort of handled the C64 versions, and I think he also done the NES version of Turrican as well. But there was also, obviously, it got ported to the various different sort of platforms, one being obviously the Amiga, and I believe the other platforms were handled by Factor 5, which is what we see on this collection. So it's a mixture between the Amiga versions, SNES version and the Mega Drive versions. But first up we got the Turrican version on the Amiga. Obviously that was ported from the C64 in 1990, and then subsequently we got Turrican to the Final Fight, which was on Amiga. I think it was actually the Amiga version that came out before the C64 version, even though I think Manfred Trent says that the C64 version is the definitive version based on this game. But anyway, that is that. So the first two are probably the go-to games for me. Those are the Amiga versions of these games, Turrican 1 and 2. And a lot of people probably cite Turrican 2 as being the best in the series and probably the pinnacle of all the series. There's no doubt about it. It is very, very cool. Graphically, absolutely outstanding, really superb. And don't forget, obviously, there is cheats there if you want some infinite lives. But then it gets a little bit more confusing after that. We got Super Turrican on the SNES, which was kind of based on, I think, Turrican 2. So it does get a little bit confusing. This was the SNES version, released in 1993. It's not quite Turrican 2, but it's obviously sort of borrows elements from both of the games a little bit. It's definitely a little bit different. The fact is, one of the main differences is that it's got a freeze sort of thing, but rather than the sort of ray that you press that destroys items, you've got a freeze beam instead, which freezes the enemies, which can confuse if you've played the other game before and you expect the sort of beam to destroy the enemies. It doesn't. It just freezes them, so then you get a chance to destroy them. So a little bit confusing. So that might have been your first foray into Turrican. It might not have been that, but anyway, after that we got Turrican 3 and Mega Turrican. Now, I think going by Wikipedia, it actually said Mega Turrican came first. I'm not really sure what it said in the manual, to be honest, but it does get a little bit confusing round about this time, Turrican 3 and Mega Turrican. I believe, as far as I was aware, I know it says there it was Mega Turrican was released in 1994. This was on the Mega Drive or Genesis, whichever you prefer. And then I think we got the Amiga was basically ported from that version. So basically Mega Turrican, it definitely feels more like a console game. It doesn't really feel like the Amiga originals. It's just a wee bit different. I think this one actually introduced a grapple hook. It doesn't have the freeze ray thing, or doesn't even have that sort of ray that destroys things. It's basically a grapple hook, so it's a wee bit different, and it does get a little bit confusing. And I believe Turrican 3 was the Amiga version of the Genesis Mega Turrican or Mega Drive game. So it does get a little bit confusing. So those two games do feel very, very similar. So then we moved on to Super Turrican 2, which was definitely very, very different. It wasn't anything like the other games. Certainly a little bit different. It was more like a platformy style game. And this one obviously was on the Super Nintendo. And then we got the Director's Cuts versions of Super Turrican and Mega Turrican. Those were released 2018 and 2022. So basically those were released just a few years ago on, I think it was on the Turrican Anthology or Turrican Flashback. There was a few different versions. Turrican Flashback only had about 4 games on it. It was released about 10 years ago or so. I think it might have been 2018, probably around about that time. Perhaps might have been before that, I can't really remember. Maybe it was 2014. My memory's a little bit hazy, but anyway, that was released back then. Then we got the Turrican Anthology Volumes 1 and 2, which was released a few years ago, which basically has a mixture of all the games you see here. It basically gets split into 2. Now, at Christmas time it was on sale, but at present on Nintendo Switch, it's £30 for each of the anthologies, which means you'd have to pay £60 for what you see on this Evercade Collection, which will cost you £20. So you could argue here that the Evercade version is the definitive version of Turrican, which is absolutely mind-blowing. It's just a shame we don't have the original C64 Turrican, which would probably make this the best thing you'll ever see, ever. But that's just my opinion anyway. And then obviously tacked on at the end, we have the score attacks for Mega Turrican and Super Turrican. I believe these were part of some sort of show at the time, and it's basically just they were part of Gamescom, that Factor 5 just made these up as a booth so they could get a quick taster of these games. I think it's more like a single level type of thing, and you're just trying to get the best sort of score. So they're kind of a pointless. Those are the 2 bonus games that have been added here. I know Blaze have got this as 8 games, but realistically you could say we only have maybe Turrican, Turrican 2, Turrican 3, and Super Turrican 2. Technically you could say there's maybe 4 games, perhaps 3 or 4 games, 5 games, I don't know. It does get massively confusing because some of the games are just slightly different variations of the other games. Look, the Director's Cuts basically just add extra levels to, or restore extra levels and sounds and stuff to the original games. So I've not played them in full, so I'm not exactly sure where those changes are, so I'm going to have to play them a little bit more in depth. But I would recommend starting with the original games first. I'm not sure which one's my favourite. I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, guys, let's have a quick look at Turrican. I'll go through the controls before we play through all the games in full. Okay guys, so before we actually get stuck into the game proper, I'll try and explain some of the controls as we go. And don't forget there is some hidden sections as well in the game, at the start here especially, so don't miss the extra life at the start. Just jump up here and you'll get a 1-up, and don't forget there's a box here that you can destroy and choose your weapon. Which one do you want? Not entirely sure. Not sure what they all stand for. I think laser, some of them are self-explanatory, but I definitely like this gun. This is my favourite of all of them. Now, before we get some bad guys onto the screen, so the A button is your jump button, X is your standard fire, B button sets off some grenades. You can see at the bottom of the screen here, I've only got 3 grenades left, so that's your grenade sort of thing. The Y button also does this energy beam. Now that will vary from game to game. It might become the grapple hook or the freeze beam, depending which version you're playing. Now you can also press the shoulder buttons, L1 and R1, and that will also do the same thing. Personally, when I'm playing the game, I prefer using those buttons rather than the Y button, so that's just a personal choice. Now, it's a little bit confusing if you've been used to playing the Amiga versions or C64. You only had a joystick and 1 button, so everything was sort of a variation of that, and using the keyboards as well. I think that the spacebar was the sort of freeze thing that goes across the screen, which if you think you press the R2 button or L1 button, that's the freeze frame. Now I've only got 1 left. You can see at the bottom right it says there, I think it's yes, it's either R2 or L2 does that. That's me, totally blew that away. There is gems to collect as you go through the levels as well. I'm not entirely sure what the point of that is. Now beware, there is a time limit to each of the levels as well. As much as you want to explore a lot of these levels, there is a time limit, and if that runs out you will lose a life. At the start here we've got 4 lives. Obviously started with 3, we now have 4, and I think the 3 next to the 4 is actually continues. And now that will vary from game to game. This is just an explanation of that. There is also another, I think if you sort of hold down or press down and press the Y button, will plant a mine, which you can see that is now we've only got 2. That's a little bug looking thing. So if you push down, press Y, that plants a mine like so, and then just get out of the way. That should destroy enemies on the screen. And that's that. There is lots to do. It is very complicated that time. Just don't forget all the various different weapons that you have at your disposal. I find that quite a lot of the time, just keep firing, because things just keep on coming, and this is my favourite part to use. Some things it's easier to kill the enemies using this ray by holding down the shoulder buttons as well. And this, you can die easy. Don't let the enemies sort of jump next to you, because as soon as they touch you, you're basically losing energy all the time, and that energy goes so quickly. Now there's a lot to the level. Now really, there's lots of parts of the levels you don't really need to explore, like going this way. You don't really need to go this way. There's nothing here that you need. You really have to head right all the time. But there is huge levels. Explore as much as you can, but at the same time, keep an eye on that sort of time limit. And I would probably recommend use those save states and use them often, because you will probably go through lives like crazy. And I would recommend just keep using those save states and jumping back into your save states if you think you've lost too many lives, type of thing. Or if you've got infinite lives, no big deal. But I think if you use the cheat, if you get a high score, you can get 99 lives on this sort of version of the game. And Turrican 2, you can get infinite lives by putting in a specific code at the menu screen. Now I think that's it guys. Just explore, enjoy, get to the exit, defeat the bosses, move on to the next world. Oh yeah, this is one thing I always forget. There's the gyroscope thing. If you press down and press A, you'll get the gyroscope, which is really cool to take out lots of enemies if you're getting basically overrun. But just be careful if you run into a gap or go down into a chasm or an endless sort of river or stream, you'll basically lose a life. So be careful not to overuse that at the wrong time. But it is very handy. I think you only have so many, or that you basically run out of time or energy for it, because you can't use it all the time. I'm not entirely sure what the background is of that. I never quite worked it out. But that is basically that. The jumping sections can be a little bit tricky, but I have to say I think Blaze have completely nailed the controls here. I was a little bit worried at first when I seen the manuals and obviously got stuck into it, but now it's completely become second nature playing it, and I'm totally used to the controls. Totally fluid, really enjoyable. and I've got completely hooked again on Turrican. Anyway guys, I'll shut up now and I'll play through all the games, and I'll give you maybe some opinions as I go. I don't want to sort of over talk through all the games because they sort of do their own explanations. I'll jump in where I feel it's appropriate. Anyway, enjoy the footage.
Welcome to Turrican!
So Turrican 2, we sort of lose a few of the weapons for some reason. We lose the grenades and the sort of mines for some reason. They've been removed from the game, but we do gain an absolutely banging soundtrack, and we can also jump on some of the enemies' heads at the start of the level. Here you'll see why, and there's some interesting additional this weapon here which is just mind-blowing, but I can't even remember how I actually pulled that off. But anyway, it is pretty much more of the same. I think graphically it is definitely upped the game a little bit from the original game. As I said, it's got a great soundtrack. Is this the best version of Turrican? Guys, let me know in the comments, which version do you prefer the best? I'm not entirely sure. I'm sort of stuck between the original Turrican and Turrican 2.
Later.
Now I know it doesn't really make for a particularly great video, but I thought I'd leave it in nonetheless, just to clarify the annoying jumping that can be experienced while playing the game. Sometimes you can press the button and nothing actually happens. Now this isn't an Evercade thing. Sometimes trying to jump between different platforms can get a little bit annoying. In the subsequent games, like the Super Nintendo games, they sort of brought in the grapple hook, which I just found extremely annoying, to be honest. It wasn't really Turrican for me. But anyway, there are a few irritants in the game such as that. It might not be the perfect game, I absolutely love it, but it definitely has a few things that will frustrate you from time to time. So on to Super Turrican. This is clearly the Super Nintendo version of the game. A few subtle changes here and there. Graphically it does look a wee bit different. There's more colours, perhaps more details here and there. It does feel a little bit like it's copying Turrican 2 for the best part. There's a few sort of things that are quite samey. Unfortunately we now have the freeze beam, which doesn't actually destroy enemies. It just freezes them in place where you still have to kill them. So I don't really like it. I think it's probably one of the worst things they've probably done. There's now different changes. You've got energy bars at the top of the screen rather than the HUD at the bottom, and that's really it. I think the jumping is a little bit different as well in Turrican 1 and 2. The jumping is perhaps a little bit floaty. You can actually jump a lot higher as well in the Amiga versions. In this version you're very limited. It only jumps at a certain height, and it does get a little bit frustrating. If you've went straight from Turrican 1 to this, you'll feel it a bit strange, to be honest, but you will get used to it eventually. But the jumping is probably even more frustrating in this game than it is in the first two games. Not really sure this is my favourite version. It might even be my least favourite version of the Turrican series, to be honest with you. It just doesn't feel the same for me. Still a good enough game in its own right, but for me I would always prefer to play the Amiga versions over this one.
Power up.
So on to Turrican 3. This is the Amiga version, which is based on the Mega Drive version Mega Turrican, which we'll have a look at next. It is quite obvious, it does look more like a console game rather than an Amiga game, although it does have the Amiga sounds, and the graphics are probably not quite as colourful as the Mega Drive version, which we'll have a look at next. But there's not really a heck of a lot of differences between the two versions. I think by the time Turrican 3 was hitting the Amiga, the home computer scene was really dying. I know from a Commodore 64's perspective that was pretty much dead. Amiga was really coming close behind. The whole home computer scene was struggling to match the consoles at this particular stage. But anyway, Turrican 3 was really decent, but I don't think it was anywhere near as fun or as enjoyable to play as the sort of first two games, Turrican 1 and 2. It definitely feels more like a console game. It doesn't feel like the original games at all. And yeah, we got the addition of this rather annoying grapple hook, which you really need to use in certain stages of the game. Otherwise you're just going to fall to your death, which can be obviously quite annoying. I'm not really sure which version I prefer, whether the Amiga version or the Mega Drive version. There is differences here and there, but overall it is pretty much the same game.
Multiple. Multiple.
Okay, on to Mega Turrican, obviously the Mega Drive version or the Genesis version, however you want to see it. And it is pretty much the same game, some subtle differences with the graphics here and there, and obviously you can hear it has that sort of Mega Drive sound rather than the Amiga sounds. There are some changes in the graphics here and there as well, and also I noticed in some of the bosses it was slightly different in how to actually defeat them. The screen seems a little bit more compact as well. There's definitely differences, but it is more or less pretty much the same game, but there are quite noticeable differences if you're playing the game. Again, I'm not entirely sure which version I prefer. They both seem quite similar, although I think for sure the Mega Drive version seems to run quicker than the Amiga version. I feel as if the Amiga version runs just that little bit slower, so perhaps maybe just the Mega Drive version wins out here. So this is Super Turrican 2, and this probably is my least favourite of all the sort of Turrican games on this collection. It just feels un-Turrican-like to me while sort of playing it. It does include the freeze sort of beam and also the grapple hook that we've seen in the Megadrive games, so it seems like a mixture between those two style games, but it tries to add a lot more sort of styles. You obviously have driving section as well, but it just doesn't feel like Turrican to me. There's nothing really wrong with it, I guess, but it just didn't have that feel, and it felt like I was playing a completely different game. And there's too many scenes that are quite irritating, like obviously involving the grapple hook when you're trying to climb the side of buildings type of thing. It was just really frustrating to play and gave me a little bit of finger fatigue whilst playing it. Sadly, I think this is definitely one for the more patient in you rather than myself. It's not particularly awful, but I just don't think it's the best version of Turrican on this collection by a mile.
One up. Stage 1, 2. Laser activated. Missile laser. Emergency. Red top. Activated. Flamethrower. Activated.
So next we've got Super Turrican Director's Cut. This was only released a few years ago. This is obviously the Super Nintendo version, and there are additional levels added. I think there might be some subtle changes to sound, graphics, that type of thing that were cut from the original game. There are a few levels added near the start of the game which I came across quite quickly that were completely new to me, so I'm assuming those are the additional levels. I'm not sure how many additions were added to the game, so you'll obviously discover them as you go, especially if you play through both versions of the game, which is no mean feat because these are tricky games. So final two games on the collection, we've got Mega Turrican Score Attack version and Super Turrican Score Attack version. Both are specially designed levels to try and just get the highest possible score possible. I don't really see the point myself, but I'm pretty sure it'll come into use for like Facebook groups, Discord groups, just trying to challenge yourself against a friend. But I found the levels quite frustrating to play through, lots of use of the grapple hook, and at times it just felt like I was wandering about aimlessly. It was a little bit of a frustrating experience. So overall, I don't see the point. Nice that they've included them as bonus games, but for me, not really games I'm going to go back and play personally.
Rebound, labor. Heal.
Power up.
Okay, my final thoughts on the Turrican Collection on Evercade. For me, this is probably the definitive version to buy at present. It's cheaper to buy than the Anthology collection that's out there. It's a better value collection than the Flashback collection, so you could say the Evercade version is the definitive one to buy. Maybe it will bring a lot more new people on board to the platform, which would be fantastic. These are really excellent games and classics of their time, and they still hold up really well today, and I absolutely love playing them. Obviously it brings back a lot of memories for me, but I still think they hold up really well. I probably personally prefer playing the original Amiga titles, Turrican 1 and 2. The others are really good in their own way, and you might see those games as your preferred games, as maybe that was how you discovered Turrican in the first place, whether it be on the Super Nintendo or the Mega Drive. So there's plenty for everyone. Yes, there is no variety whatsoever. I guess Super Turrican tries to sort of change it up a little bit. I mean, Super Turrican 2, but they are pretty much all the same type of game, absolutely zero variety. So if you don't really like this sort of Metroid style or run and gun style games, you're not going to get much out of these at all. But don't miss out on these guys. These are really good quality games and some of the best games you'll probably play on Evercade systems. Fantastic stuff, and well done to Blaze to bringing these to Evercade platforms. Arguably the definitive version of Turrican.